across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello and a good evening. It is Petrie here with you up until 1 o'clock tomorrow. And coming up at midnight, it is your chance to talk back, and that's exactly what I want you to do, because it's really interesting to see the attitudes towards women and girls in this country change so remarkably. Gen Z's attitude towards women, something has gone horribly wrong, and I don't know what it is. So I need you to help me with this, to try and figure out why there is such violence towards women and girls, and why attitudes to women's rights, to feminism, to those things are changing so rapidly amongst the younger generations. The older generations are more, the boomers are much more likely to agree with equality, much more likely to agree with women's rights, but the younger generations, who you would have thought it would be completely the other way around, the younger generations are not as thoughtful about women and girls, and this is leading to a lot of misogyny, and this is also leading to a lot of violence, an increased amount of violence towards women and girls in this country, well, globally actually, but we're talking about the UK. So I'd love to know from you why you think attitudes are changing towards women and girls, why we're seeing that play out in an increase in violence towards women and girls as well. And like I said, this interesting phenomenon that it's the younger men who display the sort of least tolerance, if you like, for equal rights, although I don't think that should ever be a question. I think that all humans are equal, and I don't see why anybody should be considered to be unequal because of gender or skin colour or sexual orientation or whatever it might be. We're human beings at the end of the day. But why have attitudes towards women and girls changed so much in this country? Give me a call. 0344 499 1000. Calls are charged at the national rate, but we do call you back. And text the word talk and your message to 87222. So that's coming up at midnight. Vincent Moss will be here with us to go through the papers. We're also going to be talking to Angus Walker about what's been going on in PMQs, the Russian sanctions, all of that kind of thing as well. Going to be chatting about that. And we're going to be talking with Dr. Ashish Jha, a biosecurity expert, looking at the Ebola outbreak in Central Africa and why the WHO, the World Health Organization, has described this as an international emergency, though fallen short. It's not going to be a pandemic, so don't worry about that. But it is serious, and how it is that cuts to USAID and our aid as well has led to this being a much worse outbreak than it otherwise might have been. So that's all coming up on tonight's and tomorrow morning's programme. So make sure you stay with me. But turning back again to violence against women and girls, this sort of violence accounts for almost 20% of all recorded crime in England and Wales. Child sexual abuse and exploitation crimes, more likely to affect girls than boys, increased over 400% between 2013 and 2022. Over 1 in 4 adult homicides is domestic related. Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper has launched a major international coalition. She launched that today to tackle the crisis globally, reinforcing the government's domestic pledge to halve this type of violence within a decade. We have to know what's causing it in order to halve it. And I'm not sure that they've got a handle on that. The government is also cracking down on grooming gangs, as ministers are now ordering police to reopen old cases and bring justice for young women who were abused. Meanwhile, of course, we saw on front pages everywhere, Channel 4 pulled the programme Married at First Sight UK following damning BBC Panorama investigation into reality TV sexual abuse. So, Pragna Patel joins me now. She's a women's advocate and co-founder of Project Resist. Pragna, good to meet you. Thank you very much indeed for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Like I was saying, Pragna, if we're going to halve the violence, we need to have a fuller understanding of what's causing this violence. And it is heartbreaking to me to see that the younger generation of men are more misogynistic and less likely to approve of women having equal rights, etc.
I totally agree with you. It is heartbreaking. I have been working in the field of violence against women and girls in the UK for the last 45 years. And when I started back in the 80s, nobody had thought seriously about violence against women and girls, issues of domestic abuse, sexual abuse, child sexual exploitation wasn't even on the radar. None of these issues were on the radar. And it's taken 4 decades of very concerted women's activism, you know, the setting up of the first refuges in the UK, setting up of rape crisis centres. And then we saw Black and minority women raising issues such as gender-based violence, female genital mutilation, forced marriage. And suddenly it seemed as if there was momentum and things were moving in the 90s, in 2000. And now here we are in 2026, where these statistics not only have not gone down, but have increased. And the reasons for that are quite complex, I think. I don't think there is one particular specific reason why we're seeing such prevalence of violence against women and girls in the UK, but also globally. And I also think that what we are facing is a crisis. The government has called it an epidemic of violence against women and girls in the UK. And there is a crisis globally. I think it's linked to a number of things. First of all, we have seen a shift towards authoritarian extremist politics, and that very much reinforces traditional ideas about women, about gender roles, and traditional family values, the idea of patriarchal systems of governance in families, where the men are, you know, at the top, dominant, and the women are meant to be subservient and obedient. So there is that. There is a kind of that shift to the right has also led to a radicalization amongst men, particularly, although some women also partake in such violence. We've seen a whole generations who are feeling uncertain, who are feeling anxious about their futures, about their existence, about there is an existential crisis, particularly amongst the young. Austerity measures followed by COVID has led to mental health crisis, has led to all kinds of anxieties and so on. And that anxiety has meant that answers have been sought, and simple answers have been sought. And one of those answers is that blame someone else. Blame someone else for your precariousness, for your anxieties, and for your kind of failure to see a positive future. And then the third thing, of course, I think is the power of social media. Social media has really promoted very right-wing, misogynistic ideas that are very harmful. And it's attracted communities of disaffected young men in particular, reinforced their anxieties and their concerns. encouraged them to blame women for their problems, and has reinforced a misogynistic and a manosphere that we've never heard of, 3 or 4 decades ago. And suddenly we have this whole online community of different groups of men who are discontented for one reason or another, and are encouraged to blame women. These are just some of the reasons I would suggest why we are seeing this crisis unfold and this rise in misogyny and violent misogyny.
I agree with you. I think there's a lot. I think it's a very complicated picture. But the thing that concerns me, wasn't the government at one point going to make violence against women and girls a specific crime? That if it was because of their gender, then that would be seen as a much more serious crime. Do you think it is time that we did that? Because that seems to have gone away. And yet, you know, if you attack somebody for their Jewishness, or you attack somebody for their skin colour, or their outward sexual orientation, appearance, that is a specific crime. Should it become a specific crime to attack a woman for being a woman?
There are pros and cons to that idea. My own view is that just simply saying that violence against women is a hate crime and therefore unlawful actually individualizes the problem. I think it's much more deeper. It's structurally embedded in our institutions. It's just a cultural mind shift that's needed, but it's also structural changes that are needed. I mean, it's not coincidental that at the same, that while we're seeing these statistics, these rise in violence against women and girls, we've also seen terrible examples of institutional misogyny, whether it's in the religious sphere, the churches and the religious institutions of all descriptions, whether it's a BBC or on the media, whether it's the police force. And we've seen some terrible exposés about institutionalized misogyny within the police force. There was a Panorama expose not so long ago that actually showed how racism, misogyny, homophobia is all institutionalized and entrenched and then promoted within in all sectors of society. So at one level, just seeing or perceiving something as a hate crime is not going to deal with the structural problems that we have in the way in which misogyny has become entrenched, and the kind of normalization of violence against women and girls that we're seeing. And if you try to criminalize that, you may as well criminalize almost every other household, or every other relationship. And so the question is a much more structural and widespread one about how our institutions, how our cultures, how our laws work together to trivialize issues to do with women, to trivialize violence against women and girls, and how we're not treating it as seriously as we should. Notwithstanding the fact that the government has said it does want to halve violence against women and girls, but still, I don't think we're seeing the kind of joined up thinking that we need from all sections of society to ensure that it will be halved.
Now, when I ask this question, I am not for 1 millisecond suggesting that women are responsible for any of the violence perpetrated against them, women or girls. But do women bear some responsibility for the misogynistic levels in this country? Is there something that we're doing wrong? I ask that because I know there'll be lots of men listening who believe that we have.
I think it would be very wrong and very regressive to blame women for the violence that's perpetrated on them. I think as I said, it's a wider structural cultural problem of, we're still haven't transformed our patriarchal institutions. Having said that, there are also, of course, on a case-by-case basis, there are, of course, women who also are perpetrators of abuse. And so I'm not for 1 minute neglecting or the fact that some women also reinforce such misogyny and patriarchal kind of attitudes. There are women who are part of the wider right-wing movement and assault on feminism, for example. So women have participated and are participating in those kind of extreme ideologies also. But fundamentally, what we are talking about is a society, and there are many societies around the world too, where we haven't really moved away from that kind of patriarchal, hierarchical structures in the way in which we organize ourselves. And we haven't achieved gender equality. As much as we would like to say progress has been made. Actually, my fear is that we're going backwards.
It feels like it. It feels like all the fighting that yours and my generation have done has almost been to naught. But there are a lot of women, though, that are now 100% rejecting those traditional roles, if you like, and the birth rates are down. Lots of women across the globe now choosing, if they can choose, to not have families, to not have children. Now, while that isn't our fault, we've just discovered this and it's brilliant, a lot of men will see that, and a lot of governments see that as being detrimental to the nation as a whole, that we're not having the children that they want us to have.
I'm not sure how that's linked to the issue of violence against women and girls, because it almost suggests that because women are moving away from the idea of their traditional roles as mothers, as bearers of children, as carers of children, somehow, that inevitably leads to violence against women and girls.
No, I'm not suggesting that, but I'm suggesting that as part of the picture that men would look at us, and maybe that's why younger men, I don't know why younger men particularly, I would have thought it would have been the older guard, but why they may look at women and saying, well, look, they're responsible for this. It's their fault. It's their fault that we're not having the children.
I can see how they would look at it like that. And there is certainly a lot of men, particularly in the manosphere, who are forming groups, men's groups. The incel movement is one example. People like Andrew Tate and other influencers, for example, would push that, would say that the reason why men are so humiliated, degraded, feeling anxious, not empowered, is because women are not fulfilling their traditional roles. That is definitely part of the misogyny that's on the rise.
So they'd rather drag us down than build themselves up.
It's blame someone else culture. I mean, it's very much about anxieties, also about power shifting, from the traditional men and the control that they have to women, who's, and feminism, which says that women should have autonomy, freedom, and control over their own lives, their own reproductive health, and so on. That shift of power can feel alienating, can feel disempowering, of course. But how we handle it as a society is extremely important. And that must start at a very early stage in the classroom, in the family, how we, inculcate, socialize children, how we inculcate values of equality, respect, and a sense of freedom and self-determination, regardless of whether you're bringing up boys or girls, is so important. But the need to inculcate respect for women.
But it's interesting again, Pragna, that a lot of schools really concentrate very much on racism and on othering in that regard. But I'm not hearing about the lessons about equality, and I'm not hearing about the lessons that you know, girls and boys are different, but they deserve the same freedoms.
I think that it is happening now. I would have agreed with you in the 90s, for example. We had very little attention paid to sexism, to misogyny, and to, you know, what was going on in terms of boys' attitude to girls, or girls, you know, the relationship between boys and girls. I think that has changed, and society has woken up a bit, partly because of the spread of the manosphere, because of the influence of people like Andrew Tate. And it's not just about the hatred that's fermented online, but the real harm that's perpetrated in the real world. You know, it moves online into the real world. And I think teachers and others are beginning to wake up to that. And as a society, we're beginning to see the impact of social media, the irresponsibility of tech companies to deal with online hatred, whether it's on the basis of gender or anything else.
And yet we do see an increase with school boys, particularly, you know, attacking female, disproportionate number of women, of course, in teaching, especially in the early years. But, you know, attacking women in teaching, not just verbally, but physically as well.
Yes, I think and that is why we're waking up to this problem also, because I think that teachers are now seeing the impact of misogyny, the real world impact of misogyny, the violence, the sexual harassment, the sexist language that is being used, which is often really extreme. And a lot of that is about, you know, the need to look at what's going on in the social media world, and how we are going to deal with the ways in which social media has been mobilized very effectively. And there is very little accountability in relation to the content of what's being promoted on social media. So we have huge challenges in that respect, which has accelerated what's always existed, which is sexist attitude, by, you know, many times. So we do have, I think classrooms and teachers and schools are waking up to this, as indeed is the rest of society. And we've seen amazingly influential and provocative and really moving programs like that drama series Adolescence, which highlighted some of these issues that we're talking about. So we certainly are waking up to it, but whether we will put enough measures in place and ultimately hold these tech companies, who now seem to have a lot of power over what young people think and how they think, is very important. So I think at the heart of this is also questions to be asked of tech companies as to why they are profiting from this kind of promotion of hatred of women and girls in this case, but also other groups.
It's fascinating to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. Pragna Patel there, women's advocate and co-founder of Project Resist. Quick break, back in a second.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it is Petrie here with you. Coming up at midnight, of course, it's your chance to talk back. And I want to talk to you about the levels of violence towards women and girls in this country and why it's happening and why it's not just happening, but it's increasing. And also why the younger generation of men appear to be, obviously not all, but appear to have very differing attitudes towards women than the older generation of men who believe in equality. And a lot of the younger men are suggesting by this poll that has been done that they don't agree with women having freedoms or autonomy. So I just find that fascinating that there's been this sort of flip. It's very depressing because you like to think that you've done something towards, pushing women's rights, women's right to equality. That's all we want. We don't want to be more than or better than. We just want to be equal to. We know we're not equivalent to, but we know we want to be equal to. That's it. That's feminism in a nutshell. That's everything. That's all we want. We want the same rights that you've got. We want you to have the same rights that we've got. It's just as simple as that. It's no deeper than that. There's no men hatred. There's no violent sort of rejection of men. It is just saying we want to be treated. We want the same laws, the same rights, the same financial ability. We want all of those things that you have by just the dint of being born a man. I didn't ask to be born female. That's the way I was born, and I deserve to be treated as equal to a man. I don't see why I shouldn't be. But why is this hatred spreading? Why is it now? Why is this misogyny towards women? And that's translating into more and more and more violence towards women and girls. Much more than men fighting each other. And I know it's not all men, but 99.9% of the time, it's a man. So take from that what you will. Give me a call on this. I'd love to hear your views, what you think about this. If you're an older generation, younger generation, if you have younger sons or grandsons or godchildren or whatever, and you can see this flip in attitude, I'd be fascinated as to your take as to why you think that might be happening. So give me a call, 0344 499 1000, and you can message me as well. Text the word talk and then your message to 87222. Now though, man or woman, how do you fancy a FIFA World Cup journey? The FIFA World Cup 2026 is almost here, and thanks to Adidas, the tournament's official match ball supplier, your friends at talkSPORT are giving you the chance to be there. Adidas is sending you and a friend to Dallas to see England versus Croatia live on June the 17th, with return flights, accommodation, spending money, tickets, and your very own Adidas official match ball try-onder. Be at England's first game in the FIFA World Cup at one of the world's best stadiums. If you're ready to get that winning feeling, here's how to enter.
Get ready for that winning feeling. For your chance to win, head to talksportwin.com or text TALK to 83338. Texts and online entries cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or call 0343 418 7260. Lines close 1st of June 2026 at 4 p.m. That's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. 18 plus UK residents only. This is a network promotion. See full terms and conditions at talksport.com/win. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now. Full T's and C's at win.talk.tv.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, it's Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock, and coming up at midnight, like I said, Vincent Moss will be here to take us through the papers, and also we're going to be talking to Angus Walker very shortly to talk about the politics of the day. But before that, a dangerous new Ebola outbreak in Central Africa, you will have heard about this, it's everywhere, has been declared a global emergency by the World Health Organization. A rare type of the virus has already caused over 600 possible cases and 139 deaths, with 51 cases confirmed in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. But stopping the disease is so much harder due to massive 90% funding cut to USAID. Vital health tracking networks have been shut down. Now, experts warn that losing this money makes it incredibly difficult to spot those new cases early, leaving millions of people at severe risk. Without an approved vaccine for the I'm going to try this, Bundibugyo strain, local medical teams urgently need global help to stop a major catastrophe, and it could take up to 9 months before a vaccine against this type of rare Ebola is ready. So it is a very complicated picture. Well, Dr. Ashish Jha joins me now, biosecurity expert and senior fellow at Harvard University's Belfer Center for Science and International Affairs. Dr. Ashish, thank you very much indeed for joining me. What is so specific about this particular strain? And perhaps you could say what the strain is, because I'm sure I got it wrong.
Yes. Well, first of all, thanks for having me back. And I actually am not always sure I pronounce it correctly either. I call it, it's the Bundibugyo strain, but it is a very rare strain. Part of the reason all of us have a hard time is it's not a strain we're very familiar with. There have only been 3 Ebola outbreaks of this being the 3rd of this strain, and the other 2 were all much smaller. The more common one is a Zaire strain of Ebola. We actually have a vaccine against it. We have treatments against it now. And that has made that version still quite deadly, but obviously easier to manage. This is pretty rare. Most of our tests for the Ebola virus don't work against this. That's why I think this virus has spread so much without us recognizing it. It's a real challenge.
So what makes it... I don't understand why this one is so rare. Where does it come from that it is rarer than the Zaire strain?
Yeah, most of the times when we have seen Ebola cross into the human population, it's what we sort of talk about as a species jump from animals. Primarily the fruit bat is the host reservoir. There's just a lot more of it in a lot more of the Zaire strain in the fruit bat. And so when it comes into contacts with humans and you get an Ebola outbreak, it's almost always a Zaire. There are a couple other strains as well. This one is just very rare. It's not in fruit bats that much. And that's why we've only seen a couple of instances where it has actually ended up causing an outbreak among people.
So normally, just so I can understand this, normally it would be a case of a human being coming into contact with a food source that has been involved with the fruit bat, and then getting Ebola. But do they pass it person to person after they've caught it initially from the fruit bat?
Exactly. That's exactly right. So what happens is once you're infected, once you develop symptoms, you can spread it through liquids, through sweat, through blood, through semen, through really any kind of any bodily fluids. And so typically, let's say somebody gets infected, the people they tend to infect next are usually family members, because if you imagine you're very sick, you're at home, your spouse, your children, your parents might be taking care of you, they get infected. They typically then will go to a doctor or a nurse who will take care of you. And if that person is not aware that you might have Ebola, they often get infected. So that is how it spreads, usually among caregivers. One other group that's at high risk are funeral workers, because in the DRC, when people die, their bodies are washed, and at that time they're teeming with virus, and people who are at the funeral often get infected as well.
And that's what they believe is the origin of this spread, don't they? There was a woman that died who wasn't detected as having Ebola, and then it was contact with the body at the funeral that they think started this spread so quickly.
Yeah, that's our best guess right now, but we are looking at an outbreak that has clearly been going on for many, many weeks, possibly months. And it has been slowly but surely growing. And we're just catching it now at a time when, as you said, the estimates are more than 600 cases are suspected. I would not be surprised if it ends up being more than 1,000 cases that are out there that we've just missed for weeks and weeks and weeks. And that's a real problem, because then bringing this under control is going to be so much harder.
And again, am I right in saying that the from catching it to symptoms with being symptomatic is as much as 21 days with this particular strain as well, which means that people clearly then get on a flight, or they move somewhere, or they do something, and they're asymptomatic, so they don't know there's anything wrong with them until 21 days later.
Exactly. So imagine you attend a funeral, you don't know that the person died of Ebola, you feel fine the next day. A week later, you travel to the capital city. Few days after getting to there, you start feeling sick. Then you are contagious and you can start spreading it. This is why when this has landed in capital cities, a lot of us have gotten nervous about the idea that it could both spread more rapidly because they're more dense places, but also people can get on planes, people can get on buses and trains and get much further and spread the virus much more widely.
And the early symptoms, you could just think you had flu. There's nothing hemorrhagic about it until later on.
Yeah, that's right. And this is a truism of almost every virus. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. If you remember, everybody was talking about hantavirus on the cruise ship. Almost all viral infections begin more or less the same way. A low-grade fever, maybe then turns into a higher fever. You get body aches, you have headaches, you can have abdominal pain. But if you think about it, all of us have had versions of that in our lives, because those are common viral syndromes. Of course, unfortunately, with Ebola or Hanta, it can then progress to something much more dangerous. But in the early days, there's no easy way to tell by symptoms what you have.
So the other issue with this, and I mentioned it there in my talk-up of this, is the direct correlation to certainly to USAID being cut. That there's a direct line, you can draw it between why this is spreading as quickly and not being detected and not being able to control it as well, and that money, that 90% of the money being cut.
Yeah, I will start off by saying I think the cuts in the USAID were deeply irresponsible, and there have been a lot of negative effects. We know that people have died because of those cuts. With this specific case, what I remind people is having boots on the ground in communities around the world has been enormously useful for USAID. It allows us to work in communities. It allows us to identify outbreaks early. Those cuts have meant that outbreaks can go for much longer. The US made those cuts. Other countries did not step in to fill that gap. Even countries themselves have not done, I think, enough to fill in those gaps. So there's no question, I think the US has got a real, culpability here of making these cuts. But I also want to highlight that others have not done their part in stepping up and filling in.
Yeah, we've cut our overseas aid as well. When we look at Ebola and the WHO, the World Health Organization, of course, I mean, America's not in the World Health Organization now either. Yeah. What does this mean for the world in terms of? Let's have a look at Ebola. They say it's a global problem, but it's not. It's not a pandemic. Can you explain that to me? The difference between the fact that this is a global and internationally of concern, but it's not going to be a pandemic.
Absolutely. Yes. So let me explain. So the first thing is something called a FIKE. It's a technical term. It stands for Public Health Emergency of International Concern. And WHO declares that anytime they see an outbreak that is got potential for cross-national spread and can be deadly. And we know that this virus this outbreak started in the DRC. It has affected Uganda. We think it has affected South Sudan. And obviously, the longer and bigger it grows, the more the possibility somebody gets on a plane, comes to London, comes to New York, and it can spread further. So that's why the WHO called it a public health emergency of international concern. That is not the same thing as you highlight with a global pandemic. And, look, all of us want this to just end where it is. It would not be totally surprising to me if we see a smattering of a small number of cases in other countries, even other countries outside of Africa. This is not going to become a global pandemic. It's just not how Ebola works. It is, you're only contagious when you're really symptomatic. And we can bring this under control if we do a set of important public health measures.
And with America now not being in the World Health Organization, does that make the world less safe for the rest of us?
I think it does. And I think it does. And I have made that case to senior administration officials and inside the Trump administration. Obviously, I've not been successful in persuading them that they should go back in. But my view on this is WHO has got its flaws. It's got its problems. I have been critical of WHO. They have not always been happy with some of my criticisms. But like any organization, it needs improvements. But when America walks away, it also loses its leverage to make those improvements. And America was the largest donor to WHO financially and scientifically. That departure has weakened WHO, and I think it has made everybody a bit worse off.
Now, just very brief, because I know I've got to let you go. I'm finding this fascinating. The vaccine issue and a treatment issue. There is no treatment at the moment for this particular strain, which is making it very difficult. And also, the vaccine has got to go through animal testing before it can be used on human beings. So we're some months away from that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we have thankfully developed a vaccine against the Zaire strain. We started with that. That's the most common version that we've seen. We don't have a vaccine against this one. There is a little bit of data in animals that maybe the Zaire strain vaccine may have some benefit here. So I think we should be studying that because we know that vaccine is safe in people. But to develop a de novo vaccine against this strain, it is many, many months if things go very smoothly. So I don't think we can count on that bailing us out. We really need other strategies.
And no treatment at the moment either, other than just keeping somebody comfortable and hoping they pull through.
Yeah, and look, good medical care can actually make an enormous difference because if you think about how people die of Ebola, they have massive amounts of diarrhea and they get dehydrated, they can have hemorrhage and basically bleed. If you can provide good hydration, you can give them blood, you can manage them in critical care units, you can help a lot of people survive.
It's fascinating to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed for explaining that to an idiot like me. Dr. Ashish Jha, who is a biosecurity expert and senior fellow at Harvard University's Belfer Center for Science and International Affairs. Quick break, back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, and a very good evening to you. Just a reminder that coming up at the top of the hour, we have Vincent Moss. He's going to be here to be going through the newspapers. But before that, UK at Prime Minister's questions today, Keir Starmer addressed Parliament following Wes Streeting's resignation speech. Now, this is the first PMQ since that election. In his resignation speech, the former Health Secretary said that the Labour Party is currently losing its political fight against rising nationalism. Well, during the session, Starmer announced that September's planned fuel duty increase has been cancelled, extending the freeze until the end of 2026. Well, the government's also faced scrutiny, though, over its decision to issue trade licences that temporarily ease certain UK sanctions on Russian oil products to stabilise domestic energy prices. And Zelensky apparently is livid about that, as he would be. Well, joining me to discuss all of this and more is Angus Walker, former ITN political correspondent. It's good to see you again, Angus. Thank you for joining me.
No problem at all, Petrie. Nice to see you again.
Right, let's start with this being the first PMQ since the election. I mean, Kemi Badenoch was foaming at the mouth with excitement over this, and I think that the House was full enough because they wanted to see Keir Starmer battle through that. How do you think it went for him?
Well, I think that it didn't go particularly well. I mean, he is a man who is wounded. I mean, speaking to people who were in the chamber, though, they did detect a certain relaxed feel from the Prime Minister, funnily enough. He is a man under a considerable pressure. He is the leader of a party who, with a cabinet minister who has resigned to launch their own leadership bid once the contest starts. And yet a certain relaxed feel from Mr. Starmer was detected. And that was interpreted by some as being that he's resigned to his fate. And actually, he knows that the process itself is quite laborious. So the Labour's own leadership process is a long one, and there are some real hurdles to cross for the rivals for the keys to number 10. So I think on a lot of fronts he may be sitting fairly comfortably within himself at the moment, that he knows the rivals have to gather a lot of support before they can make their real attack on him. And sometimes that does something to leaders who are under pressure, and in some ways the pressure has been released, perhaps.
But, I mean, or he's just incredibly tone deaf.
Well, there is that, and I'm sure his critics would agree with you, Petrie. But yeah, that's what people were picking up in the chamber today, was Keir Starmer able to survey the ground around him, and perhaps from his point of view, taking some comfort from the fact that actually a leadership contest has not officially yet begun.
No, and this is the whole mess that Labour have got themselves into, isn't it? I mean, this long drawn-out process now of waiting to see if Andy Burnham can become an MP. That's by no means a given. What if that doesn't work out? Then what happens? Where's Streeting polling within Labour being incredibly low? In fact, nobody, if they were head-to-head with Starmer, apart from Burnham, would beat him probably. So they've got themselves into a right old pickle. And if I was Keir Starmer, I mean, I'd have a little bit of schadenfreude about it. I'd be laughing behind their backs about it.
Well, I think really zoom out, and actually I always think of what the voter thinks of all this. And one thing we do know is that the British public, the British public, voters, we do not reward parties who are divided. Look at what happened to the Conservatives. Yeah. So I think you have to really zoom out and look at any party that is sucking up energy and using energy to fight amongst itself is not going to be fighting the battles that perhaps the public think they should be fighting on their behalf. And I really think it is dangerous for any political party, and history tells you this. Look at the last few decades. Any party that is suddenly mired in an internal leadership contest or battle and they usually are quite long, drawn out affairs. They do not fare well when it comes to the ballot box, and that is essentially also what we saw at the local elections. People are frustrated out there. The cost of living is the number one issue in poll after poll after poll, and that's what people out there really want to our politicians to be dealing with. And so the sight of them spending time fighting amongst themselves down in Westminster really, really does not go down well.
No, it certainly hasn't with my listeners when we've talked about it in phone-ins. It's exactly that. It's just like if they're fighting, they're not fighting for us. They're not working for us. Talking, though, of the cost of living, this 5p that we're all supposed to be incredibly grateful about. So basically, it's not coming down. It's just not going up. Fuel duty by that 5p. He's been accused again of a U-turn on this. Do you think this will play well, though, with us?
Well, I don't think many of us may notice it that much, but it is, many a mickle makes a muckle, as they say in Scotland, and so we should take whatever we can get in terms of cuts in taxes and reductions on the cost of living. But I do think the fuel duty for many years, whatever political party you're talking about, it's become something that I don't think can ever really go up ever. It's often used by politicians, the Conservatives as well, before would often announce this as a major victory for people. But it is perhaps something that's a useful thing to reach to. However, if you wrap it all up over the years and look at all the freezes in fuel duty there've been, we are talking about a substantial reduction in the amount of money that's going into the Treasury, especially with more and more cars, electric cars being bought now. So you've got that transition period in terms of how much money the Treasury gets from transport, from vehicles, and that's changing quite a lot at the moment. So
mind you, the reason they can afford this 5p cut is because the Exchequer has made an absolute fortune because of the Iran war, with the prices going up. So they've got the money there. It's not like they're giving it to us. They're just not taking more away from us.
Sure, but actually, the amount of duty that's being raised on fuel is actually going to go down because more and more of us are switching to electric cars. And I also read that the number of electric cars being bought in the UK is going up and up, and especially at a time like this when people are looking at the price at the pump and think, well, actually, maybe my next vehicle should be an electric or a hybrid, and I can reduce my dependency on these fuels.
And again, that takes us, it's almost like this was scripted, Angus, this is that takes us on to the Russia question. And that is, I mean, there's a bit of jiggery-pokery going on here, isn't there, as far as Keir Starmer's talking about the licenses, and it can't be direct from Russia, it has to have been refined in a different country, and it's still Russian oil. Russia's still making money out of it. Russia is using that money to bomb Ukraine, and we're supplying money to Ukraine to bomb Russia. It doesn't work.
Yeah, it really feels like one of those decisions made by the government that really may have made sense in the cold atmosphere of a meeting room, but as soon as it has that collision with reality, it really goes down well. And politically, the government opened itself up to a major attack from the Tories, and Kemi Badenoch took the opportunity at PMQs today to really go for the Labour government for bringing in appearing to weaken the sanctions. Now, you've got this situation where the government is desperately trying to convince us that they have not weakened sanctions on Russia, but they did expose themselves to that political attack. That the money will now be going to Russia thanks to us buying products made with Russian oil, and that money will be used by Russia to, in the words of Kemi Badenoch, to kill Ukrainian soldiers. And that's a very, very difficult position for the government to find itself in. So a really tricky one. And if you look at polling, from More in Common, from YouGov, all the other pollsters, the support for Ukraine in this country has remained solid right the way through since Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So people are right behind Ukraine, according to the polling anyway. A substantial number of people in the country are in it for the long haul. And so this does go down very well. This does go down very badly when it comes to the presentation of this policy. I think they may have miscalculated how this is going to look. And of course, if you're having to explain, you're losing.
But also, I mean, the explanation that we got was really trite, wasn't it? I mean, it was like, oh, this is to save people's holidays, but because of the jet fuel. But it's like, I'm sure we'd rather go without a holiday and not have blood on our hands, right? I mean, it is an extraordinary decision yet again. I mean, I am gobsmacked at how easily this Prime Minister can punch himself in the face. It's an odd decision, and also globally, this will not be seen very favourably from NATO allies, from Ukraine's allies, from Ukraine itself.
Yeah, and it raises the suspicion, of course, that if you're having to make a decision like this, which hopefully you realised wouldn't be popular when it was actually looked at in daylight, as it were, then what is that saying to us about the real concerns behind closed doors about the amount of jet fuel that might be available once we get into, July, August, of course, once we get into the school holidays and the proper holiday season with people, many more people jetting off. And of course, in Britain, we are a country, unlike the mainland Europe, where most people who go on holiday do get on a plane. Whereas, in France, most people go on holiday in France because it's such a big country and offers all sorts of different alternatives. So I did think to myself, well, maybe this tells us quite a lot about how concerned they are, and they wouldn't want to perhaps reveal how concerned they are about the amount of jet fuel that's going to be available. Really, really tricky one. And because the decision is going down so badly, it did make me think, why have they taken this risk?
Honestly, it's like they don't ever say it out loud, that they just, it's somehow in their heads. And of course, Russia's thrilled. We've already had the message from Russia saying they're absolutely delighted by it, which is never a good thing. Angus, always a pleasure. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. Angus Walker there, former ITN political correspondent. Quite an extraordinary decision. I just don't get it at all. But there you go. Coming up, though, we are going to be going through the papers with the wonderful Vincent Moss. He's going to be here in the studio, clutching those papers so we can let you know what's coming up tomorrow. Stay where you are and join us in just a moment.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, it is Petrie here with you through until 1 o'clock, and of course in an hour's time the phone lines are thrown open just for you. In fact, the whole programme is just you, it's just about you from then on. It's a full hour of phone in. It's the only place this happens on this radio station, so please, or TV, whichever you're in, however you're enjoying it. So please do take part and talk back. What we're going to be talking about is the rise in the numbers of incidents of violence against women and girls, and also the fact that the younger generations of men are more misogynistic than older generations of men, which is a really disturbing direction of travel, because with everything else you would think that younger people would be more progressive, not less progressive. It's a really fascinating situation that we find ourselves in this country at this point of time, where women and girls are facing more and more violence and bad attitudes towards them when they're out and about. And I just wonder what is causing that. In your view, what is the situation? Why is it that more and more of those younger men, do you think, are becoming more misogynistic? And misogynistic is a term that you don't use lightly. A misogynist is a person that hates women. And it appears that the younger generation actually do have a hatred towards women and girls. Most of the violence in this country is perpetrated by men against women. 20% of all crimes, I mean, that is all crimes, is violence against women and girls. So that is a huge number. The violence against girls has gone up 400% in the last few years. So this is women and girls. It is an absolute crisis, and it keeps being talked about as a crisis. You know, and really a hate crime, because women will be attacked just because they are women, out on the streets, out and about. It is just horrible. And being a woman, you do have to be, you live your life in a very different way to a man, in the sense of, you know, taking your keys out early, making sure if somebody's following you that you know, you're on heightened awareness all the time. Even pulling up to a petrol station, you find that you do a cursory look around, you see who's about, what you know, what people are doing, what they look like, and women have to be that vigilant. That is not something I think that men have to be. I'm not belittling the fact that there is male on male violence. But we're talking specifically about male on female violence here. The violence is perpetrated against women and girls by men. And before you say it's not all men, no, it's not all men, but 99.9% of the time that a woman is attacked or murdered, it is done by a man. So it's always a man, and yet it's not all men. But why is this happening, and why is it increasing? Because numbers like this, you would have thought, would start to go down as generations of younger people come through who are certainly more progressive about gender ideology, or more progressive about sexual orientation, and, you know, all sorts of things they seem to be more progressive about. But when it comes to women wanting to just be treated as equals, no more, don't want more. We know we're not equivalent. We know we can't all do the same things. We know men are stronger in most cases. We know, you know, all things that women and men have their different strengths. We're not equivalent, but we need to be treated as equal. Just because you were born a man does not give you more rights than it gives me, or it shouldn't. So why is this crisis happening? And this isn't about hating men. This isn't, I mean, I made one. My son, right? I like him so much, I actually made a man, a human being man, and he's wonderful. And I know a lot of very good men. So I know it's not all men, but it is men attacking women in greater numbers than ever before. So why? What's happening that's turning whatever it is into that level of violence, that misogyny, that hatred, that visceral, physical hatred towards women and girls? In your view, what is it? I mean, is it because, you know, those traditional roles have gone and men are feeling threatened? Is it because men don't know where they stand in society? I don't know. I'm not a man. You're going to have to tell me. So give me a call, 0344 499 1000. Those calls are charged at the national rate, but we do call you back. And text the word talk and your message to 87222. Well, joining me now to discuss this and the papers of the day is Vincent Moss, former political editor and a good man, a nice man.
Hi, Petrie.
I think. I've known you a while now.
So, yes.
I think I can make that decision. Why do you think this is becoming such a crisis?
I think there are two main reasons, one of which is the police are now taking it more seriously, so more people are reporting it. I mean, thinking back 10 or 20 years, police would often refer to a lot of these incidents as just a domestic and wouldn't take them very seriously, weren't very interested in following up, and now they are. And so they take it more seriously, more people are reporting it. So while the numbers are going up, that's a good thing that more people are reporting it. But I think the real problem, and I think we all know this deep down, it's online. Most young men are getting all of their influences really from TikTok, Instagram and other social media. They're not reading the newspapers, and to a large extent they're not even looking at traditional television channels. They're looking at their phones and they're looking at social media, so it's what they're seeing there, and it's the characters we know about. It's Andrew Tate and people like that and other people that populate the manosphere, but it's not just Andrew Tate. There are lots of Andrew Tates out there, and they're getting that influence from social media, and the social media companies aren't doing enough. We know they're not doing enough. The government talks about getting them to do more, and these potential Australian-style social media bans for those under 16, although the rumour is it's not working that well in Australia so far. We'll see. But they need to take action on social media because it's about influencers and role models, and that's where many young men are getting their influence from.
But you see, you know, these and the boys are getting younger and younger, and many of the attacks on young girls now are perpetrated by young boys. It's not the way you'd think it would be. It's not the adult male, although that is a problem. But it is, you know, and sexual attacks are perpetrated by young boys as well. You know, you've got 12-year-olds and 13-year-olds, but they're all going to the same schools. They're all being brought up around mixed education, mostly in this country. I just don't understand it, because if you're in a classroom full of girls and boys, then you would think that you'll be less likely to have those misogynistic tendencies. But unfortunately, we're seeing an increase in that, and children that age being misogynistic towards their largely female teachers.
Yeah, very much so, and that's a big problem about young boys and being very aggressive towards female teachers and not respecting them, and making it very hard for teachers. But even often after school, where I'm in South London, although they go to co-ed schools, you still often see the groups largely sort of distilling into all male groups and all female groups to a large extent. They're not hanging around, perhaps in my day and your day, when you wanted to hang around with girls if you were boys, and vice versa. And now it seems as though they're quite happy hanging around as gangs of lads, and seem to be self-reinforcing this culture where the stuff they're hearing, and it's part of, as your earlier guest was referring to, there's an element of incel culture as well, where people feel as though women should be treated in a certain way, not a very respectful way, and they should, to use an old term, know their place, as it were, and fit into men's life as they see how they should fit in, and not as an equal. There's a kind of subservient part of modern life, and that's just crazy. But it's something that's the indoctrination that's happening online, and a lot of these young kids, unfortunately, are swallowing it up, not least because many of them don't have the role models around to steer them away from that path.
But our generation, Vincent, you know, okay, so we were lucky. We followed on from the 60s, so the 70s we were going to school and all of that, and just at primary school, and then in the 80s going and further on going into secondary schools. But there didn't seem to be that animosity. Okay, there wasn't social media then, there really wasn't, but there were still the stereotypes of women. You know, there was always the women I don't know if your mother worked. I mean, mine did, but she wasn't seen as the breadwinner. It was more, you know, she was a veterinary nurse, but it wasn't seen like that was terribly important in the household. We had to learn. I thought we learned that we could be mates with a boy or a girl, or you could be. I thought we'd done that, and you would hope that would get better, not worse, not regress, because, you know, there was misogyny. There really was. I mean, the whole "wahey" in the newsroom. I was the first female reporter in my newsroom, and was, you know, given stories about washing machines practically. You know, I mean, there was a problem, but doesn't seem to have been hatred. It was ignorance.
Yeah, very much so. I remember those days in the newsroom where, to use a phrase, women reporters were given fluffy stories and weren't given the crime beat, for example, and things like that. But certainly with when I was at school, and as you say, in that sort of period, most of my schoolmates, we aspired to hang out with women. I mean, everybody wanted to get a girlfriend. That was, you know, they didn't sort of despise women. If anything, they were a little bit feared and a little bit of, oh my God, how do you talk to them? It's, you know, in a positive way. It was an aspiration to talk to women and try and get on with them, and try and get a girlfriend. Or as me and my friends probably always say, oh, you don't know my girlfriend, she goes to a different school because you hadn't yet acquired one. So it was a positive thing. And and it is a completely different culture now. And I guess unless you are literally aged between sort of, you know, 10 and 15, it's very, very hard to understand, or unless you've got kids of that age and you see it happening. But often the kids will be doing a lot of this, locking themselves away in their bedroom when they get home and communicating online, or after school hanging out and still largely communicating online, even when they're with their chums out and about. It's really hard, but it must be down. I know it sounds like an easy response, but it's true. A lot of it is down to social media and the role models that they're seeing on social media.
It is such a disappointment. Because, you know, you've got a lot of men as well go, feminists are all, you know. And I just think, do you know what a feminist is? A man can be a feminist. It's somebody who just believes that we should be treated equally in the eyes of the law and society. I mean, we're not asking to be better than, or to be promoted above, or to be, you know, to take away the patriarchy, although I sometimes think that wouldn't be a bad idea. But it's just like, in the eyes of the law and in the eyes of society, we just want to be seen as being equal. I mean, that's what feminism is. Very
much so, but I think one of the potential problems could be women are very successful now, go and get lots of good jobs, often better jobs than some young men. And if you look at that category of 16 to 24-year-olds, where nearly 1 million of them now are unemployed or not in training or education, many of those will be young, disaffected men. And I suspect that if they're looking around and seeing
girls doing better at school and things like that.
Exactly, that probably only just sort of foments their sort of questions about self-worth, and they react against that in a negative way, which is kind of resentment of women, especially women who are doing well, because they're struggling themselves.
There's a lot on social media at the moment of women who are saying, you know, I'm done with men. Of all age groups. It's quite interesting, actually. Just saying, I can afford my own car, my own home. Why do I want to pick up somebody's socks? Why do I want to be looking after another human being when I can just live on my own? And a lot of women are choosing peace over relationships. That's the way they're putting it. I've got a peaceful life. It's just wonderful, that plays against or plays into the misogyny as well, doesn't it? The women know your place, and you're supposed to fit into my life, not the other way around.
Yeah, very much so. And as you said, women can be the breadwinners. I mean, in our day, my mother was a nurse as well, and she did well, but my father earned a bigger income. And it was usually tradition in those days that the mother or the woman in the household, if they were working, it was probably the first generation where it was our parents' generation where they were going out to work. Before that, they wouldn't have gone out to work at all. No. They were working, but usually in a kind of secondary income role, or where they took career breaks to bring up children, and their career had to go on pause for a bit. Whereas now, lots and lots of women, and probably for the last 10 or 20 years or longer, have been going out and getting full-time jobs, and probably at least as good, and if not better than many of their male counterparts. And again, that would be something, if you're a teenager or a young man who's struggling to find work, and you see lots of women out there getting jobs, that again is going to feed into your sort of potential resentment. And if you're getting that reinforced online by bad voices, that's not going to help.
No, I mean, it's just so depressing that it's getting worse rather than than better. So that's the phone in at the top of the hour. So please do give me a call. What is your take on this? What do you think it is causing these sort of levels of hatred towards women and girls? Because it is a crisis. It's a massive crisis in this country and around the world, actually. So be interested to hear what you think, why you think this is happening, and you know, is women's independence to blame? You know, what is causing these problems as far as you are concerned? Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. Vincent and I are going to take a quick break, but we'll be back with the papers shortly.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a very, very good evening to you. It is Petrie here with you, and with me, Vincent Moss. Sorry, we were just talking there about putting cones on our dogs when they have a surgery, and you've got a sausage dog, haven't you? So the cone, it would have tripped him up, wouldn't it?
It trips him up because he's too low to the floor, so he can't wear a cone because he keeps bumping into the pavement, poor fella.
Oh, it's such a shame. I was just saying, I've got like one of those Simpsons donuts, you know, with the sprinkles on it that you inflate.
Better.
That's going to, Humphrey's going to be going in for the snip. Anyway, let's have a look at the papers. The Sun newspaper, 20 foot from World War III is the headline. Putin's fighters buzz RAF spy plane, near miss risked flaring tensions. Russian pilots risked World War III by flying 20 feet from an RAF jet. Two fighters were split second from disaster as they repeatedly harassed an unarmed UK spy plane. This is Russia flexing its muscles a little bit.
It is, very much so. Incredible pictures on the front of the Sun and elsewhere, and incredibly dangerous. I mean, I always remember watching that first Top Gun film where Tom Cruise was very, very close to the bad guy Russians, and thinking, how implausible is that? And it's pretty much the same distance as this incident that happened over the Baltic or the Black Sea.
Yeah, there's a close-up photograph, really very close-up photograph from the RAF, the cockpit of the RAF aircraft, taking a picture of the Russian aircraft. That is close.
It is incredible. You can actually almost see, I think you can see the pilot in it, and it's happened over the Black Sea at more than 500 miles an hour, which is pretty terrifying and pretty reckless. And if they touched, then they'd both be dead. I mean, so it's pretty foolish of the Russians, let alone...
and that Russian jet is fully armed.
Yes.
As well. It's fully loaded with missiles.
And this escalation is the sort of one of these instances, the sort of thing that could just trigger all sorts of problems. So it wouldn't just be the two pilots that might be in trouble and killed. It could just spark a kind of, potentially spark into Russia-UK conflict.
Absolutely, and there's lots of countries now are saying that drones and things like that appear to be from Russia, just testing the boundaries a bit. This plays into Keir Starmer's. I don't know why he made this decision. I can't get my head around it. His decision to buy Russian fuel, from Russian oil, jet fuel that is refined elsewhere. That's going to backfire on him, surely. What a decision.
You'd have thought so, and it's so much for the solidarity with Ukraine, and Zelensky must be furious about this.
Absolutely livid.
And Kemi Badenoch, Conservative leader in the Commons today, being very critical of the Prime Minister for doing this, because it is effectively, after all our tough talking on Russia and Putin, we're effectively easing sanctions on Russia.
Russia are delighted. We've already had a quote from them saying, this is great news, we're thrilled.
It's exactly, and the only reason I can think that Keir Starmer and the government felt they had to do this is because this impending cost of living crisis that's getting worse and worse and worse. It really looks like the government is very, very worried about this, and is pulling all sorts of levers it can, because it's really worried about rising prices, rising food costs, and the impact that's going to have on everything. And I think that can be the only reason they feel they have to do this.
But isn't that the time, as a leader, that you say to your country, look, we could do this, but then we've got blood on our hands? And I reckon this country is filled with very decent people who would say, yeah, no thanks, I'd rather not have that holiday than have a holiday and that give Russia more money to kill more Ukrainian people. I think most people would say, no, we don't want the jet fuel. So in order to make this decision and then to announce it as if it was some kind of benefit to us so we could go on holiday is bizarre to me.
Exactly, because you could understand it if it was a kind of life-critical thing, like it was to do with food provision or something, because we can't
to do with surgery, gases or something.
But as you say, it's about the refining of jet fuel, which is really
jet fuel,
foreign
which is a
holidays.
choice. Yeah.
So it's not, we're looking after your foreign holidays. Sorry, Ukraine. It's not great, is it?
No, it's definitely not a good look. I mean, and he'll get real punchback on this as well.
Yes.
Zelensky apparently is considering a public announcement on it, because what's the point in us giving Ukraine all these billions of euros if we're also giving money to Russia? That doesn't make any sense to me, that we're having to fund Ukraine and yet now we're funding Russia.
Absolutely, because this money won't be going to the Russian people for food. It'll be going in, as we know, most of the Russian economy funds do go into the Russian war machine.
Because they're on a war setting, yeah. It is utterly bizarre to me. I just don't know. I don't know where Keir Starmer gets his advice from, but blimey. Right, let's have a look at the Telegraph. Don't cap food prices, bank warns Reeves. Well, Reeves can't cap food prices. We're not in the 70s anymore. And it's a very strange thing for her to have asked. Again, it seems like an odd thing to ask these supermarkets to do, because they don't have to do it.
They don't. They wouldn't do it. It's doomed. It's crazy. The supermarkets involved have described it as idiotic. The Bank of England has come out. Andrew Bailey in the Telegraph is saying it's warning Rachel Reeves against doing this. We know it wouldn't work, because apart from anything else, supermarkets, if they want to, even if they were told to cap something, and even if they listened, they just make them smaller, don't they?
Or they put the price on something else.
Exactly. So it's an idea that would never work.
And it makes the government look weak in even asking, in the first place, something that is pointless.
Yeah, and it's really infuriated the supermarkets, because they operate, although they make multi-million-pound profits, they operate on really tight margins. Just ask the farmers who are always moaning about how little they get for milk. And if you go into most of the big supermarkets, bread, cheese, milk, and a lot of those things, there is a cheap option that compared to Europe and America is very, very cheap. The supply lines into our supermarkets are very efficient, very tight margins, and there's always a product that is actually, I think, reasonably cheap, especially compared to other nations. The problem is often many people, if you can't get to the big supermarkets, the cheap ones we all know, and you are buying from a corner store or you live in a rural area and there are very few choices, that is when you pay a lot for things.
True.
I mean, I don't know if you've noticed, if you go to a late night store that's open till midnight and you buy your milk because you've forgotten it, you will pay 50, 60, 70% what you would pay in one of the major high street supermarkets because you're shopping for convenience. So people who have to do that sort of shopping do get punished, but actually food prices, I think, are pretty... I mean, it's going up a lot, but I think they're pretty reasonable in this country.
It is going up a lot, but yeah, it's such a... Again, I don't understand it. Snooping HMRC changes tax codes but gets it wrong. Savers are wrongly being ordered to pay thousands of pounds in tax after HMRC was given licence to monitor bank accounts.
What could
possibly go wrong?
Exactly. Looks like in one case the HMRC have taken untaxed interest at £3,500 despite the actual figure being just £94. So yet again, HMRC in trouble for making lots of mistakes. I'm sure there are people out there trying to legally avoid and illegally evade tax, but likewise an awful lot of innocent people that are getting charged the wrong tax code.
Most people are PAYE, they don't have a choice, you know, and yet they're still snooping on their bank accounts. I think it's extraordinary.
Crazy.
But yeah, I mean, I can't, otherwise I get myself into trouble. Drone threat forces Lithuanian president to hide in a bomb shelter. That's what I was referring to when we were talking about the Russian jets there. This is yet another. They don't know if it was Russian, but they suspect it was, and it forced an alarm to go out as well.
Yeah, it's really worrying. I mean, it's happening in Lithuania, but these drones can pretty much get everywhere, and it's the sort of thing that we've seen drone activity around UK military bases. There have been problems in the States, and the ease at which drones can now be manufactured and shipped around, I think it's going to be something that unfortunately we're going to see more and more of. Always thought that it's the Russians behind it, but it might not be. In this case it might be, but it could often be the Iranians or another bad actor. And I'm afraid it's just a problem that's going to get worse and worse. Yeah, it definitely is, and that it's those scares, isn't it? Like we were saying, that can shock a war into happening. The nibs at the bottom there. Trans women banned from female spaces. Bridget Phillipson is expected to confirm today that trans women must be barred from female lavatories, changing facilities and sports teams to comply with the law. Well, I think the story is really, and the Telegraph's line on it, it's about time, because this was a Supreme Court ruling more than a year ago. Yeah, they've put it off, haven't they, for a long time. They've delayed and delayed and delayed, and it now looks as though, according to this, Bridget Phillipson is going to finally say that the ruling's got to be followed. She's the Equalities Minister. She's been criticised for the delay, but it looks like she's finally saying trans women will be barred from female lavatories. I wonder, I mean... And changing rooms. Yeah, and changing rooms. Well, hopefully, we'll just hope that they provide proper spaces for these trans women to feel safe in. Yeah. Brighton sea victims were 3 sisters, and the father, Joseph, described the pain of losing 3 daughters in the prime of their lives, all at the same time. Incredibly sad story. I mean, for various reasons. I was in Brighton about a week ago, and it reminded me just how dangerous the sea can be there. Some beaches in parts of the country are quite mild, but when there's a storm in Brighton... Not Brighton. No. I mean, and also it's very rocky, it's all just big stones, you trip over all the time. Particularly, I guess, if these women have been out for a night, they might have been wearing shoes that were not appropriate for beach walking. We don't know what happened yet, but they were 3 sisters. I mean, that's just awful. It's heartbreaking. Yeah, exactly. As you say, we don't know what happened, but it feels as though the likeliest thing perhaps is that one person got into difficulty, and because you're sisters, you're even more likely to go into a dangerous situation to try and rescue your sisters. So potentially that's what happened. But I don't think I've ever heard of a case in all the years I've been a journalist of where 3 people in the same family have drowned at the same time in the same incident. It's just awful. It's horrible. And this one is interesting. Lavender could be a lifesaver in bomb blasts.
Lavender, I'm just about to plant some lavender, actually. I've got 3 lovely big lavender plants that I'm about to plant this weekend. Lavender could be used to save lives in a terror attack, scientists are claiming. Now, first of all, I thought it was using it as a medicine, but no. Dense lavender plants are successful in absorbing shocks. They could prevent deaths in an explosion.
I don't believe that, do you?
No.
I mean, have you pretty thick lavender?
I mean, lavender barriers could replace concrete surrounding government facilities.
Well, good luck with that. I mean, I don't know who's selling the lavender that claims that that's going to work, but
it's me, actually. Yeah.
It's a great story.
It's a great story, but how would a lavender bush?
And how could it replace concrete and metal barriers?
Replace concrete and metal barriers?
Well, it says it would be less intimidating for those they protect. Well, I'm sure that's true.
Yeah, but does it work?
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
What are you going to do? Dive behind a lavender bush when there's a bomb attack?
I mean, that's just nuts, isn't it? I can't imagine it would work.
I do like that quite a lot, because I said I'm about to plant 3. I think I've got to wait until I can dive behind them.
Well, exactly. If we know there's a bomb, then you sound all round to yours, isn't it? And behind the lavender.
All round to mine, behind the lavender bush. Quite an extraordinary... I love that story. I think that's absolutely brilliant. Blimey. Let's ponder that while we take a break.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk, and it is Petrie here, and with me the fabulous Vincent Moss, former political editor. We just had the Times rushed into us, hot off the press. I wonder if it is. No. Streeting set to ditch leadership bid if Burnham wins by-election. Could that have anything to do with the fact that he just polled incredibly badly with Labour?
I think very much so. I mean, this leadership contest hasn't started yet.
Nope.
Keir Starmer says he's going nowhere, but we're all assuming it's going to happen. And I think really the clever money is on Andy Burnham, the current mayor of Manchester. If he gets his seat, which he's going to be running in the by-election in Makerfield, June the 18th, and if as I think probably he'll win the by-election. If he gets in, the suggestion from Labour
it's going to be head-to-head, isn't it?
Yes, but that Streeting may not run because he'll look at the figures and just think, actually, I can't beat him, and maybe there'll be another opportunity in a couple of years' time, because it looks as though Andy Burnham, more left-leaning than Wes Streeting, the former health secretary, would win a contest. So in that situation, why have one and why lose? But then again, Labour really needs a contest because they don't want to face the criticism that they've had a coronation.
They've had a coronation, exactly. But also, maybe Wes Streeting is now ruining the day he quit his ministerial position and is saying to Andy Burnham, I'll step away if you give me a top job in your cabinet. Possibly.
I mean, it's very... I would have thought it's hard to see those two working together, and Andy Burnham will have the people he wants to bring in. So it's very difficult to see how it pans out, other than everybody's very confused at the moment because Keir Starmer did Prime Minister's Question Time today, and he's giving the indication of a man who's going nowhere. So it's all very well having this sort of noises off and everything hotting up for this June the 18th by-election in Makerfield. But at the moment, there isn't a vacancy.
I mean, they must be sick to death up there of elections.
Yeah.
If you think about it, the poor Mancunians up there with Makerfield and the Gorton and Denton and then all the council elections. I'll be like, oh, for God's sake, I've got to go out and vote again.
All the door knocking, all those people working shifts who've just got the baby down or the dog to sleep, and then you've got about 6 parties banging on your door asking for votes.
Yeah, just stop. No, I mean, they must be fed up. The bank chief joins attack on freezing food prices, so that's another story there. Governor warns cap wouldn't solve the cost of living crisis as retailers dismiss the policy as preposterous.
Yes, and that's the sort of boss of Marks and Spencer, Stuart Machin, saying it's absolutely preposterous. The government shouldn't be trying to run business. I think they probably need to understand business better. And of course, it's important. Why they're really furious at supermarkets is a lot of the reason prices have gone up is because of direct government policies where they put labour costs up, in minimum wage and all those sort of things.
Exactly, and fuel bills.
So it's a bit like, hang on, you're asking us to cut the costs that you've put the prices up.
Yeah, it is absolutely ridiculous. And on the front page as well of the Times, there is a photograph there of those 3 women that died in that drowning off Brighton Beach as little children, as girls with their dad, who just described them as his joy and strength. Burnham rivals rants revealed. This is the Metro. Reform hopeful. Far-right rioters don't exist. Reform UK has refused to investigate the candidate it hopes will derail Andy Burnham's bid to become Prime Minister, despite his history of controversial social media posts.
Yeah, this is the plumber Robert Kenyon, 41-year-old former Army reservist, combat engineer. I mean, I think we're sort of getting to a point, though, where we almost expect Reform candidates and some other candidates to have some pretty dodgy stuff in their social media. I wonder if you're thinking of voting Reform, would it influence you that much? If you were a swing voter, you might not vote for somebody. But the fact that people have loads of dodgy stuff on their social media and offensive stuff on their social media accounts, I'm not entirely sure it would put off that many potential
I agree. I think it's grist to the mill, isn't it? But it's interesting. I noticed today that Reform, which I think is the wealthiest political party now in terms of funding and money, is looking for a vetting officer to put in place to vet all their candidates properly, and their social media and things like that. There's 22 jobs going at Reform.
Well, they've got a lot of money, not least from their sort of crypto billionaire in Thailand, backer, who's funded Nigel Farage to the tune of £5 million. But I think the thing is surely if you're the vetting person, you just say to all of them, right, I know you've all got social media accounts, delete them now and start again, which is what the sort of more long-standing professional political parties tend to do. It's the first thing they'll say to a potential candidate is, let's have a look at your social media, get rid of all the nonsense and silly pictures you've posted on there, and then we'll take it forward from there. So I think Reform sort of, as a very newish kid on the block, is wising up to this. And that by-election will be interesting because Reform did very well in that seat in the local council elections. I think it won all of the local council seats in the Makerfield constituency, but it's not the same as Gorton and Denton where the Greens came through. The Greens are much less likely to do well in this area, and there has been talk of Greens perhaps stepping aside to allow Labour a clear run as the kind of anti-reform candidate. So there's a lot of horse trading to happen between now and the by-election date, but it's by no means a certainty that Andy Burnham will get in.
It really isn't, and also, like you said, it is pretty much that in Makerfield they'll be voting for the next Prime Minister.
Yes.
And that's quite a lot. I mean, and I wouldn't want to play that game.
No, and there's a theory that Andy Burnham allies say is that if he's going to stand for Prime Minister and going to say he can take on Reform at the 2029 general election, he has to prove himself he can beat them in his backyard. And he could, of course, got a much safer seat. Now, I'm not sure that's true that he would have got a safer seat.
I don't think there is such a thing.
No, exactly.
There's only about, 5,000 in it, something like that.
And really, I mean, with Labour's polling at the moment, you'd want 15 or 20,000.
You definitely want, and even
majority.
then, if I was them, I'd be nervous about it, because there isn't a safe seat anymore, and people are so angry with Labour that they're unlikely to play Labour's game in, fast tracking Andy Burnham into the position of being Prime Minister.
Very much so. I mean, the people in Makerfield won't want to be taken for mugs and see themselves as some kind of weird experiment to get the Mayor of Manchester, however popular he is, and he is very popular in Manchester, into Westminster to get rid of Keir Starmer. So,
I mean, I would potentially vote against him just for the devilment of it.
Yes.
I mean, and I think a lot of people probably will. We can say that now because it's not a by-election.
No.
Soon as that purdah is in, I won't be able to say anything. Might as well get it out now. Right, the Financial Times. Xi warns on the law of the jungle. Xi Jinping and his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin at a welcoming ceremony. Xi warns that unilateralism had put the world at risk, regressing to the law of the jungle. Well, it's all very well if you're the tiger, isn't it?
Well, absolutely. It's a sort of veiled criticism of America, I think, really just days after, of course, he hosted President Trump there.
Yeah.
So China's showing its kind of what a power player it is. One day you've got the US president in, and the next day you've got the Russian leader in.
Yeah.
So it just shows that they really are a force to be reckoned with.
And the language is very different that they're using with each other. My friend, my dear friend, yes. All of that, they're calling each other. Not one of those from Xi to Trump.
Yes.
It was, there just wasn't that friendship there. Yeah, it's a very... and also awkward, because there were claims that Xi had told Donald that Russia would regret the Ukraine war, and apparently that didn't happen at all.
This is the trouble. They have these meetings, and you used to be able to rely a little bit on the diplomatic readout from sources close to these people, but nowadays it just seems as though people are giving completely different versions of what happened in these meetings. It's the same as happening in the... talks with Iran over the war there with the Americans, where you just can't rely on either side to be giving an honest account of what's happening.
No, absolutely. And Trump saying he was just about to start bombing again, I actually don't believe. I believe that was a barefaced lie. But there you go. Food price cap retreat after backlash from supermarkets. Again, just an embarrassment for the government. Just an embarrassment to go, cap in hand to the supermarkets when they didn't stand a chance of getting it.
No, it's crazy. They allowed the idea to be floated, but it got some traction because I think it started in the Financial Times, and obviously people take that paper very seriously when it reports these sort of issues, and the story got traction, and now, as you say, Rachel Reeves and the government are forced to backtrack because this idea of a grocery price cap was never going to work. It was always a doomed idea, so I'm amazed they allowed it to get traction.
But I think I was saying this to Angus Walker, it's almost like they don't ever say stuff out loud. When you're reading a package, or you're about an introduction to something as a journalist, or you might read it out loud because then you can hear it properly. Just reading words, you can miss things. I miss things. I misspell things, or I leave letters out or words out. But if you speak it out loud, it resonates better. And it's almost like they don't speak it out loud. This whole idea with the Russian jet fuel that's refined in a different countries, if that makes any difference. It's like in your head, sometimes things sound great, right? When you say them out loud, you go, that sounds really dumb. So why are they not saying stuff out loud?
They don't seem to have an emergency break. It's like they discuss the things in the meeting and then nobody actually stops them
and
from
goes,
going
let's
out
just
and
have
saying,
a think about that.
Yeah, where does this story end up? And then how's it going to play with the supermarkets? Should we actually have a quiet word with them and see what they think about it before we allow it to be floated?
Even say it? Absolute lunacy. The Daily Mirror, Labour's happy shoppers, Chancellor to drive down prices. Yeah, but this is late then. Shoppers could save on food staples like baked beans, crisps and margarine under government plans to help the cost of living. Rachel Reeves will cut tariffs on more than 100 items, and kids will get free bus rides throughout August. So this is a different approach.
Yes, I think that the Chancellor Rachel Reeves is due to give a speech where she's outlining some efforts to tackle the cost of living crisis, and the two sort of main takeaways seem to be that there will be free bus travel for kids in August during the school holidays, and that the cuts on some supermarket goods and some tariffs will mean that some items will be a bit cheaper, particularly baked beans, margarine and things like that. It does mention crisps, which I wouldn't have thought they'd want to be cutting the price of that too much, not particularly healthy. But so some potentially good news there, but it sort of begs the question, well, if you're cutting fares for kids in August, why not July? So it feeds into this sort of thing, I think, where there's a problem now because of COVID and the money that was handed out in COVID, and because of the money that Liz Truss handed out in terms of the huge energy price cuts when there was that spike on energy bills. People are now expecting more and more a cut to help them with cost of living and bills, and the more that happens, the more people will expect it, and quite frankly the country just can't afford to be cutting too much.
But I'm not sure how many of our staples actually are subject to tariffs as well, unless there's a tariff from Cornwall.
No, and presumably it's on imported, on some imported goods. And again, that presumably, unless that particular good isn't made at all in the UK, if I was a UK supplier and you were cutting tariffs on my rivals'
I'd be
produce
very
coming
unhappy
from
with
then
that.
you'd be thinking that'd be undermining your market. So again, I mean, I would like to think the government's potentially thought it through and worked this all out, but potentially not.
There's no evidence of that so far, is there? There's Prince William as well at the top of the Daily Mirror, who's a Villa fan, I believe. Yeah, he is a Villa fan. And, of course, seeing that 3-0 victory, they went on to win the Europa League, which thrilled my producer as well, who's wearing his Villa shirt.
Two very happy men.
Because he's part of the team, apparently.
Well, men always claim victory when their club wins, don't they?
You're saying, oh, we've waited a long time.
Well,
so
exactly.
what part did you play in that? So I'm the 12th man, where the fans are the 12th man.
I mean, to be fair to Prince William, he does actually look and sound like a genuine Aston Villa fan.
Genuinely, yeah.
So fair
and
play
he
to
takes
him.
his boys, doesn't he, to the matches and things like that. So they're all, it does seem to be. Do I need to take the 1:45 break? I do, don't I? Yes, I haven't taken it. Right, quick break. A bit late, but back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it's Petrie, and with me Vincent Moss, former political editor, going through the papers for tomorrow. The Daily Mail again displaying that picture of the Russian fighter that came within 20 feet of the RAF plane. It's a crazy picture, very, very worrying. The Guardian, Burnham backs Mahmood's plans to tighten rules on immigration. I don't trust a word any of these people say at the moment, because we know why he's saying what he's saying, and that is to get the vote.
Of course. He's up against the challenge in a by-election from a Reform candidate, so he's going to have to sound on the right of the argument on immigration, for now at least, because he needs to win votes of potential Reform voters and sound tough on immigration. That's why he's, according to The Guardian, falling into line with the Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood's controversial changes to the immigration system. Now, of course, I suspect if he wins that seat and his next battle is to persuade the Labour Party that he's their choice for Labour leader, then he will be trimming fast to the left and be dumping that.
I know. I mean, this is the thing. I don't trust anything that any of them say. A picture there on the front of those three beautiful girls, those young women who died in Brighton as adults. Absolutely stunning, all of them. And this one at the bottom here, AI tipped for Nobel. AI will work with humans to make a Nobel Prize-winning discovery within 12 months, and tradespeople will be helped by bipedal robots in 2 years. That's according to the co-founder of the AI firm Anthropic. Well, I mean, Nobel, the AI will be part of the Nobel, but certainly science, without a doubt.
Oh, definitely.
As long as it doesn't get involved in writing and arts and things like that, they'll be...
Well, exactly. I mean, and then, of course, AI firms are going to say that their machines and their bots and their...
Bipedal, sorry.
Yes, are going to be successful, and just their ability to process things at high speed and analyse things and all the rest of it means it's almost certain that they would be some factor in winning a Nobel Prize, just because of the way they can analyse things so quickly. So I don't think it's telling us anything we didn't know, really. Just a question. I mean, the big thing that worries me is... I was
talking the other day about how many jobs that these are taking.
Well, exactly. They're going to take loads of jobs, but it's also... I mean, I just need to be convinced, I think, when it comes to AI, there's definitely a kill switch, because we don't want them taking over the world. That's the...
Well, I don't think they're doing that yet. The other story right at the top, how Britain fell in love with second-hand clothes. I am a huge second-hand clothes girl. Buy almost everything on Vinted. And eBay,
this is past people up. It's really popular and really successful, isn't it?
Certainly clothes for work, secondhand. I just literally I made a promise that I wouldn't buy anything new.
And is it always reasonable quality?
Brilliant. Yeah, it's really a better quality than I could afford new. I mean, yes. You know, and yeah, it's good stuff.
Because they've taken over really from Vintage, taken over from the traditional charity shop, hasn't it? Really, you don't.
It really has. Yeah. I mean, I got the watch on Vinted. Nice. Yeah, I buy a lot of stuff on Vinted, and I think it's great. I think the second-hand clothes market, and a lot of it actually that I buy. This, for example, was unworn. It still had labels and tags on it and stuff. So a lot of people get stuff, it doesn't fit them, or they, I don't know why they wouldn't just take it back to the shop, but maybe they've passed a date or whatever, and then they just sell it on Vinted for a £5. It's like, okay, why would I go and buy it new for 12 quid?
Well, exactly. And I've heard of people actually going to charity shops and finding things relatively cheaply, especially vintage stuff.
And then reselling
it on Vinted is quite a nice little sideline.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing. I think it's clothes are just so disposable that it is good that we're buying as much second-hand as we are. And I will now, look, I want to buy a new rug for my living room, and before I press the button on buying something new, I will look and see if I can buy it second-hand.
Yeah, especially as the older clothes, especially things like old men's shirts, I say, not old man's shirts, but older men's shirts, so it is in the length of the shirt, they tend to be better made and last longer because disposable fashion now, not naming some of the high street stores, it is cheap, but it's cheap for a reason. And some of the stuff that you buy, some of the T-shirts, they might only last you sort of 5, 6, 7, 8 washes, whereas if you've got a T-shirt from 20 or 30 years ago, some of those last forever.
They do last forever. And when I'm painting, I do wear men's shirts because they're great at covering absolutely everything, and I buy those second hand. I just go on with a couple of quid. Great. Or go down the local charity shop and pull off. You know, they're absolutely. I wouldn't buy them here. It's just pointless. And the Daily Star. Right. It's King Charles III. The seagull pooped on King Charles's suit. Yeah,
there's a picture of what looks like seagull mess on the back of his jacket with a caption saying, "Just as well it didn't land on my head." Well, we've all nearly had that happen to us, I suppose, haven't we? Especially if you're in. It doesn't say where it happened. I wonder if he was near the seaside.
Must have been, yeah. Mind you, we get loads of seagulls in West London.
That's the thing; they're everywhere now, aren't they?
Yeah, I think it's because of Barnes. That's bird sanctuary.
Yeah,
that's fantastic. Have you ever been there?
I've not been. Funnily enough, I thought I wanted to go very soon to visit that place, but I did notice it doesn't allow dogs, which is fair enough.
Dogs.
So I can't take the dogs. So.
I know it is a wonderful place, but it doesn't allow dogs, which limits my exposure to it as well. And the Daily Express, no thank you to another PM who does not back women. He's got serious questions to answer over his views on single-sex spaces, MPs insist. So the knives are out for him.
Yes.
As we knew they would be.
And most of the papers, as you'd expect, are trying to trip him up in his sort of journey to try and get
Brexit,
to number 10.
Women.
Exactly.
All sorts now. And now immigration. Right, that's the papers done. What have you found today?
Well, funnily enough, we were talking about AI a bit earlier, weren't we? And there's a interesting story in the Telegraph about Trinidadian writer Jamil Nazir, whose short story, it's been revealed, he won a big literary prize, but it looks as though he had the help of AI to produce it. He wrote this short story called The Serpent in the Grove.
And raving reviews.
He did, but concerned readers are saying that they've used these AI detection tests, and it looks as though when they've scanned the story, the quote in the Telegraph is, "It always certainly was not produced unaided by a human." And Granta's own editorial team has said that. So even though he's won this prize, the Commonwealth Short Story Prize, it now looks as though he's being accused of producing AI. And this is increasingly common, isn't it, that people are relying on AI. Now, it's fine if it helps you at work, I guess, but if you're going to try and win a literary prize or do something like that,
that's cheating.
It is cheating.
That's cheating, isn't it? Like that's not on.
So AI does have some benefits, but you'd have thought also, you must know nowadays people are going to check for that.
They should take the prize off him.
Well, that may end up happening because it says in the story he's been contacted for comment, but it doesn't look as though he's responded yet. I mean, what they tend to say, a lot of people who get caught out, is, I used it a little bit, but I didn't use it a lot. But there seems to be a suggestion that he's used it quite extensively to produce this book, and that's obviously a problem. Yeah,
and there's got to be tests on all of these things, on artwork, on books and things like that, or a deliberate something that says this is AI.
Exactly. I think people just want to know what they're buying, whether it's a record, a book, or a film. You just want to know: was it produced by a human? Was it produced by an AI? And if so, just label it so I know and I can make my choice.
A friend of mine was a great artist, used to paint stuff, and when he did copies, he had to mark it as a copy because it was so good. Vincent Moss, thank you very much indeed. Back in a mo with Talkback.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good morning to you. This is Talkback and it is Petrie, and this is your opportunity to do exactly that. This is a full hour stripped of everything else, a couple of breaks, but apart from that, it is just you and me and your chance to have your say. And the story we're talking about this morning is not so much of a story as a crisis that we're talking about this morning, is the increasing violence against women and girls in this country. And it's not just in this country, it is a global crisis. And it's the rise. It's not the fact that it's happening, because that's always happened in all societies. Women are seen as weaker, more vulnerable, easier to attack, all of those things. But the numbers are increasing. So it is the rise that is the concern, that these numbers are going up and up and up. And so many women, I don't know anybody in my friendship group, I'm trying to think, who hasn't been the victim of some kind of male violence. So why is this happening? Why is this increasing? Why is there this misogyny, this hatred towards women and girls? Child sexual abuse and exploitation crimes more likely to affect girls have increased over 400% between 2013 and 2022. It is 400%. And a lot of those sex crimes now against girls are being perpetrated by boys, not men. So it's starting young, this sense of other with women and girls, this sense that they are less than. And I just want to know where it's coming from. What is feeding this? I don't think it's just social media. I think social media probably plays a part in it. But there's something else going on that if it wasn't so easy, this is the thing. With social media, it appears to me that it's very easy to turn a boy into being a misogynist. And it wouldn't be that easy if something else wasn't going on. Does that make sense? Do you know what I mean by that? That it seems to be so easy to turn these boys against women and girls, that something else must be going on that they're seeing, that they're feeling, that makes that turn so easy to do. I think I've explained that okay. But I want to know why you think this is increasing. And there's no getting away from it. As misogyny increases towards women and girls are becoming more independent. They're choosing to be single. They're choosing not to have children. They're buying their own properties. They're earning their own money. And for me, that's the root of this. That this is what men hate, or some men hate, is seeing women being independent. But I don't know, I'm struggling to know why. Because these misogynists, these influencers, these manosphere people saying, I don't want my woman to work and I want them to stay at home and have kids, that's expensive, right? You've got to earn a fairly good wedge to be able to support a family in that way. Most families, if they've got a property and a couple of cars, both parents have to work. They both have to work. They need both incomes in order to afford that. So it's a very old-fashioned, it's sort of, it doesn't work anymore. The idea that two people don't have to work to keep the household going may have been the case when properties were much cheaper in the 70s and the 60s. It may have been the case that one wage would have supported a wife and some kids. That is no longer the case for many people, for most people. So it's a very bizarre, twisted ideology based on a world that doesn't exist anymore. That's the other thing that confuses me about this, is, we need women to follow the traditional role, stay at home and have babies. Can you afford that? Really? Can you, as a single bloke, afford to do that? The answer for most people is no, I can't. I need my wife to work as well, to at least pay for the childcare, or at least pay for the something, right? So it's an ideology based on a time that doesn't exist anymore, and it's become twisted. So I'd love to hear from you on this. Why is it increasing? Why are the rates still increasing? The violence against women and girls. All sorts of violence, physical violence, sexual violence, controlling abuse, all of these things. 0344 499 1000. Call was charged at national rate, but we do call you back. And text the word talk and your message to 87222. So let me know why you think this is happening. John is in West Lothian. Good morning, John.
Good morning to you.
So, John, why are we seeing this increase, do you think?
Well, that's a very difficult question because it's a very complicated thing. I don't think there's a very easy answer to it at all. And perhaps I'm from a generation where these sort of things did not happen. But I think there's a general breakdown in society at the moment. I think there is, and it starts in the home, I think. I think it comes from respect. If you're brought up with respect, whether it's, to your fellow classmates, whatever, these things wouldn't happen. But I think there are so many other fundamental things to it, and I don't think it's all to do with social media. I think that, and what I say may be a little bit controversial, but there we go. I think that there's been a swing in society generally that positive discrimination sometimes works against certain things. And it's shown up in the classroom when you look at some of the results. What young boys are doing in the school. They seem to be a forgotten group in some ways, and I think that must have an effect on them as to where they think their place in society is. But there is no excuse for violence against women at all. I mean, don't get me wrong.
No, I completely understand that. But the thing is, though, these boys and girls get the same opportunities at schools, and a lot of schooling is about putting the work in.
Yes.
Isn't it? And girls historically have worked harder, and they do work hard. I don't think teachers are not teaching boys. I think boys are just not learning.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. But I think perhaps in the past, the boys just expected that they would get the best of everything. They would be expected to go out there, and now girls are fighting very hard. To achieve things. There's perhaps more ambition there nowadays. And I think that we're in a society now where people expect the state to do everything for them.
Yeah, we are.
As I say, it's a fairly deep and complicated situation that I just sometimes fail to understand why some of these things happen, because if you've got any sort of self-pride, and again, it starts in the family. That you've got to make people realise that what you get out of life is what you put into it. And if you think you're going to get it without doing anything, you're going to do it. But I have a lot of meetings with the police in the area that I work for. Well, I don't work anymore, but the community work that I do, I have a lot of meetings with the police. And certainly it's apparent now that domestic violence is on the increase as well. Now, if youngsters are being brought up in that type of environment, then they may think that is the norm.
I agree. I think that is a real issue. Is if domestic, you're going to see that, aren't you? If domestic violence cases are increasing, then certainly the boys brought up in that whole household think that it's okay to hit a woman, and even if they hate it, even if they don't, even if they're traumatized by it, they still see it happening and therefore learn something about the position of women.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is, we hear stories, and I, go down to various schools and talk to people, is that this violence in the classroom. And there doesn't seem to be a proper result to these things. They seem to just think they get away with it. That it's the norm, and if they get away with it, it becomes the norm. And I think that school teachers, I feel very sorry for school teachers sometimes, because they don't have the same discipline opportunity that perhaps teachers had when I was being brought up. You would have dared to answer the teacher back, never mind, indulge in violence. And I think that there is no comeback on these people that actually do it, because if they're reported and so on, then the teachers are involved, not the kids. And I think and parents always take the children's point of view. And I think that, again,
the power dynamic has completely shifted. I mean, when I was at school, we didn't have any power at all. They'd got rid of corporal punishment, not capital, corporal punishment by the time I was at secondary school. But though it was still, the teachers were the boss, right?
Yeah.
And you didn't muck about with that.
But again, because as I say, I do go into schools quite regular to I get invited down to judge various competitions and things that the kids are doing as part of our panel, and you can feel whether or not the teachers are also treating the children with respect, and it's a two-way thing. And the local school that I go into a lot is that you feel it. The children actually totally respect the the teachers, but the teachers also respect the children. So it's very much a two-way thing. That if they feel comfortable, and if they're not being talked down at, they're being talked as not equals, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
They're treated with respect and brought up. But the problem is, if they go home and then it's the opposite, then that's where I think problems actually occur. I think parents have got a lot to do with this.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, don't get me wrong. At my school, there wasn't corporal punishment, but they would still clip you around the ear. They would still chuck a board wipe at you, a chalkboard wipe at you. Those heavy wooden ones. That would still come flying at your head.
I can't believe you were in that era. That was the sort of era that I grew up in. I thought that would have all been gone by the time you were at school.
No, there was still violence from teachers. It was just more surreptitious. You weren't sent to the headmaster for it. It was an immediate payment for cheekiness. But yeah, I think the power dynamic has shifted with children and adults. I think that we were all much more aware of respect, but I never ever judged that a woman was less than a man. Like I said, my mum did work when I was growing up, and maybe that taught me about going to work.
Yeah, we were certainly brought up to respect everybody, and everybody was equal. There wasn't a difference. And actually, you never even thought about it.
No, never crossed my mind. If they were adults, they were scary, and you had to be nice. You had to be polite to them, and that was all it was. There was no gender, difference at all. It's interesting, isn't it, that maybe by softening up, we've created more problems.
Well,
again.
yes, I think it also comes from politicians as well. I mean, I think that the leadership has to come from the top. Down. You've got to give families the respect to be able to do things, but at the same time, where things are going wrong, people have got to be prepared to stand up and be counted in a positive way.
Yeah, there's got to be accountability. I don't know. I just wish it wasn't happening, John. I really do. John, thank you. John from West Lothian there. I've got to take a very quick break, but I'll come back and talk to Andrea in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good morning to you. This is Talk, and it's Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock. And we are talking this morning about the increase in violence towards women and girls in the UK. Now, we expect, don't we, that younger generations will be more liberal and more progressive, but that's just not the case. We've got a situation now where younger generations are becoming more misogynistic than older generations. And there's, according to new research carried out in 29 countries, including the UK, suggests that almost a third of Gen Z men believe that a wife should always obey her husband. Never obeyed a man in my life. A similar number say a husband should have the final say on important decisions. So that's a third of younger men. Gen Z came, where are they? What age? I can't remember what age they would be now. But the boomers were up until 64. So we've got, apparently, younger men want their wives to obey them. Obey them? Like, what are you? You're not a boss. Who are you? I find that I can't believe that anybody expects another human being to obey them, frankly. I mean, I do what my bosses say, but I wouldn't say I obey them. Mind you, they're paying me, so I suppose they've got a right to ask me to do stuff. But in your personal life, to obey somebody, that's a very bizarre concept, isn't it? To have anybody obey you, it's a very, I don't know, dictatorial. But anyway, I'm surprised that younger men have these attitudes that older men don't have. But they do, apparently. Andrea is in Essex. Hello, Andrea.
Hello again, Petrie.
Hello. What's causing this, Andrea?
Well, I don't know. I don't pretend to have any solutions. But what I do think is that we need to do more, don't we? Mm. You know, in terms of close relative marriage, I think it's probably the woman that pays more of a price if a child is born with, like a birth anomaly. Mm. I'd put a few quid on that one. what else? Burqa. Let's get rid of the burqa, ditch the burqa and stop making women subservient. People coming here with 2 wives. No. Women wouldn't be able to come with 2 husbands. We've got to set examples from the top. This is what we will not tolerate.
I mean, I do agree. I do agree that the idea of the burqa being accepted is wrong. We shouldn't have 2 tiers. But I have spoken to a lot of women who wear the burqa, and a lot of them will tell you that they choose it, they prefer it, and I don't think they do choose it. I don't either.
Societal pressure. It's cultural,
it was community pressure.
Yes, and peer pressure and the fear of judgment and all of that kind of stuff, you know. But France did it. Why can't we? And then in terms of what we can do, Petrie, in a wider and smaller world, I said to your producer, where we put our money is hugely powerful. We don't realise that every pound we spend has a real, like butterfly knock-on effect. Like, why are we still flocking to Egypt on holiday, the tourist pound, when it's one of the highest countries for FGM? Why are we still putting money there? Stop going to Egypt until the government has done more, you know? If we want to change things, stop going to vape and barber shops that look dodgy. Put your money somewhere a bit more credible. Stop using Deliveroo and Uber Eats. If you're moaning about migrants working illegally, I think our money is much. We think we can't. Well, it's bigger than us. It's. Sorry, I'm ranting away. But it's huge. We can't. We're powerless. But we're actually not. Where we put our money and where we spend it and how we spend it has a huge, huge impact.
I've always been a believer in that. I've stopped buying absolutely any American products. Because that's I feel very strongly about that at the moment. So I won't buy nothing in my house is now an American product, and I trace it back. I've got a little app. You can find out, which money is involved in which company, and that's just important to me, and that's something that I will do, and I will continue to do it. But and I do agree that but about female genital mutilation, I wouldn't go to a country that promoted that either. I feel very strongly about that. But the UK and London specifically is the heart of FGM in Europe. This country,
in Europe, yes,
we are the biggest. I mean, it is absolutely vile that those operations still go on. They go on Harley Street and places like that. And a lot of people come from all over the world to have their daughters mutilated.
Yes,
in Britain.
Yes, I know, and they call it the cutting season when girls go abroad, go overseas.
Yeah, and you can see the increase in you see the increase in them around Harley Street. Yeah,
but you can have an FGM protection order in this country where you're served some kind of order to prevent you from ever having your child. If they think they're at risk, we hardly use it. The government have got to lead more and be stronger for women. And I think, we've got to really set firm boundaries. This is what we will not have, because I think all of these cultural stuff trickles down. Not like the economy, that doesn't. But it trickles down into attitudes, and I just believe that so very firmly. Like, where's Lisa Mandy or whatever in terms of Virgin Island, where if we're honest, if a woman loses her virginity, she's seen like she's given up something. Yeah. If a man loses his, he feels like he's won something. So why are we watching or having rubbish like Virgin Island, which I've never watched, but I've seen the clips for it, Petrie? Why are we allowing rubbish like that to be on our television? Our government are absolutely useless. And not just this one.
Well, look, I mean, how long did it take Keir Starmer? I don't even think he would tell you now what a woman is. Couldn't even tell you what a woman was.
That's another one. I forgot about that one.
Yeah, they couldn't even tell you what. I mean, how are they going to protect? How are they going to protect women and girls when they can't even tell you what a woman is?
Let me tell you what one was, and that we can't be safe in our own one space. Oh, it's an absolute kill me now.
So, do you think that that governments, and it's successive government, I mean, none of this is just the fault of Labour.
No.
That they have not been strong enough in supporting women and supporting girls. I mean, we
Not
certainly
for 1
know
minute.
that the law hasn't been very good at that, and that depletes our power, doesn't it, as women?
Totally. I don't think they've been anywhere near strong or bold, and they're not brave enough. I tell you who I do. I mean, I used to be a Tory voter, always, and then I wasn't. But I'm actually falling back in love with Tory slightly now.
With Kemi?
Because of Kemi, yes.
She's doing, yeah.
Yes.
She's actually seems to be doing quite well. I mean, some of the stuff she does is really petty, but I think she's proving to be a strong leader, and you can tell because the Tories are shut up about her. They've stopped banging on about her. But it's interesting when you talk about the all these different cultures sort of bleeding into what Brits think of women. Because the crimes break down really. I mean, the majority of crimes against women, are perpetrated by white men. But that is because there is a majority of white men. In this country, right? So actually, the criminality breaks down. The numbers of black men is equal to the number, the breakdown from the black community, Asian men, the same. So fewer there are, the fewer of those men, but in proportion, it's the same. It's roughly the same. Yes. So, yes. But it is predominantly white men because this is a country predominantly white. Yeah. Yes. So it would be that. But that violence, I think, towards women and girls, particularly domestically, has always been there. Even before we saw this cultural, these different cultures and the way they treat women in this country, there's always been a problem of violence towards women and girls.
There has, and what we also need to remember that with private issue versus public issue, domestic abuse only became a private issue about 50 years ago. Prior to that, a public issue.
Yeah. Prior to that, it was fine.
Prior to that, it was a private issue.
And rape within marriages was allowed.
Yes,
it was allowed.
You could do anything, and it was okay.
Yeah. It's not anymore, by the way. Anybody thinking that it's okay? You cannot rape someone ever, even if you're married to them.
No, absolutely not. But I'm just sick of inaction or just being compliant to the wrong groups of people. I mean, what I see. Moving sideways, I see Keir Starmer walking out with his wife now. It doesn't even look like she wants to hold his hand anymore. I'd love a body language expert to look into that one, because it looks like he's making her hold his hand, or he's gripping her hand towards his. I'd love a body language expert.
What about Trump and Melania though, where she actually literally just smacks his hand away now, or she moves her hand almost into a pocket away from Trump? It's hilarious. You don't need a body language specialist for that, I can tell you.
I know. And what about Macron and Brigitte?
Oh yes, that was an awkward, wasn't it? But yeah, I think that we've got a lot of problems going on in society, and I think that a lot of people are blaming a lot of people for those problems instead of the people that we should be blaming, and that is the politicians
we should be blaming.
And the billionaires.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't want to make it a woman's problem to solve, because I don't think it should be our problem to solve. But I do think women have got to just make a bit of more of a stand, like we did in the sort of 70s, in terms of stop watching TV that objectifies women. Well,
and also we would stand up to men then. I mean, if somebody did touch you on the tube, it would be like, oh, get your hands off, mate. You made a fuss about it. You didn't just quietly accept that was okay. And then other men would step up and help you. And unfortunately, that doesn't seem to. A lot of men will just turn away now if a woman's in trouble. They don't measure each other. They don't tell each other off.
No, but I think us as women have got to just withdraw from certain social media sites, withdraw from TV that objectifies us. But I also know that would be incredibly hard for younger women because it's their world, isn't it? All of that media stuff is their world.
Yeah, I don't have anything to do with it anymore.
Me neither.
I completely backed out of it about 2 years ago. I just thought I don't need it. I haven't missed it. I don't need it. I'm not interested. I don't have the ego for it either. Oh, look at me. Look what I've been doing. Look at me. I just think, oh, who cares? Who cares what I do in my time off? No one. So yeah, I just don't get it. I don't understand it. But like you said, Andrea, I'm not one of those young people anymore. Andrea, good to talk to you. Thank you. Right, let me read a couple of messages before I take a break. Natasha, I was groomed when I was 14, married a Muslim at 16. Gosh, was hard to break away. Now I'm in my 50s. The hardest 15 years of my life was getting away. Brought up Catholic, and he tried to take it away. And then when he married me, I was his possession. He could do what he wanted with me, physically and mentally abused me. But this was about 30 years ago. Natasha, I'm glad you're out. I mean, the idea that a human being is somebody else's possession is absolutely disgusting, isn't it? It really is. Women and Girls Network helpline, by the way, if you need it. It's on the screen for those of you watching the television. But if those of you listening, if you need any help at all about any of the topics that we're talking about this morning, the number you need is 0808 801 0660. 0808 801 0660. Quick break, back in a second.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk. Oh.
Hello, Anna. Good morning to you. This is Talk, and it is Petrie, and you are in the Talkback Hour. And we are talking about violence against women and girls. The violence against women and girls accounts for almost 20% of all recorded crime in England and Wales. That's more than 1 million a year. At least 1 in every 12 women will be a victim in any given year. That is just, it's shocking. Child sexual abuse and exploitation crimes, which are more likely to affect girls, increased by more than 400% between 2013 and 2022. So it is getting worse. Why? I don't see it's just social media. I think that it's too convenient that as women have become more independent, violence towards them has increased. I think that social media exacerbates that, but it's too easy to turn these men into misogynists or these boys into misogynists. So something else is happening in order to make that pathway easy. message here, unsigned, but it says, I heard, he or she said, I heard a while back that the amount of men that can't find a partner has trebled in the last couple of decades. So maybe it's resentment towards women caused by this. I believe this trend is caused by dating apps and social media altering the dating market severely. And I agree. I think that has bred resentment. I think that women are choosing peace. I think a lot of women of all different age groups now are choosing to be independent. They've got their own money. They've got their own, place that they live. They're living independently. They've got a group of friends. They've got, women are far better at being on their own. And they enjoy it. It's peaceful. It's nice. They can still date, but they're not going to partner up with somebody or want to get married or become somebody's unpaid servant, right? And all of those things, they're choosing not to have children, and that is leaving a lot of men on their own. It's coined the male loneliness epidemic, but the way to fix that is not to drag women down, it's to rise to the level that women are at, isn't it? It's not to drag them down or beat them up or rape them or whatever it is that men are doing against women and girls. That's not the answer to it. It's not the answer to enslave women just because men are finding it difficult to find a partner. And while I sympathise with that, it's a you problem. Be better. Maybe it's as simple as that. But thank you for that message. Dan is in Warrington. Hello, Dan.
Hi, Petrie. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, not bad. Just picking. So just before I talk about this, the misogyny thing. Obviously, the guest that you've just had on there picked up on female genital mutilation, which is just abhorrent, isn't it?
Yeah.
But also something that is never talked about. I had never heard it raised on the radio or anything. Is actually male genital mutilation and circumcision, which is it's child abuse and it's disgusting, and that happens to hundreds of thousands of boys in this country.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it is. I think it is abhorrent. But the female genital mutilation is done for men. And male genital mutilation isn't done for women.
No, I mean, often women are holding the girls down.
Oh yes.
To do this to them.
Yeah. So, because they know that they won't be able to get their daughters married unless they're, intact.
But either way, what I'm saying is, I don't even. It doesn't matter what the excuse is for mutilating genitals. It shouldn't be done to boys either. It's barbaric and it's child abuse, and that has to be said. It doesn't matter what the excuse is to that at all. To both girls and boys, it's disgusting. Are you still there, Petrie?
Yeah. I'm just thinking. Yeah, no, it is disgusting. Look, anything that it's abhorrent. I mean, it is absolutely disgusting. And like you said, it is the women that are insisting on their daughters being mutilated in order for them to be able to get married. And that's the point.
Because of sort of cultural archaic, crazy practices. Again with the boys as well. But on the misogyny thing, which I don't believe there is a growing misogyny. I believe it is more lack of consequences for actions. And over the last couple of years, Petrie, I've spoke to you now and again on the phone, haven't I? And whether it's to do with knife crime, whether it's to do with litter on the floor or whatever. And I've said the same thing time after time after time, that there is no consequences in this country anymore for your actions. And I've said it, the old hug a hoodie thing, it's never, ever, ever, ever going to work. If you just break it down, that is it. If you look, for example, Hugh Edwards, right? Hugh Edwards walked free, didn't he?
Yeah.
For the crime.
I still can't get my head around that.
every week we hear in the radio that a rapist or someone that sexually assaulted a young girl or something like that has walked free from court. And I think surely we need to be looking at these judges. Surely we need to be looking at our judiciary, because if you get tough on crime and at all levels, that will curb all this, Petrie. So I don't believe it's misogyny on the rise. I just think it's absolutely that we get away with everything these days and there's no consequences.
But if it isn't misogyny, then why is it there's a disproportionate number of women that are violently abused by men?
Because I was supposed to put it in simply.
Because men could just go around and violently abuse and rape each other if they wanted to and leave us out of it, but they don't.
No, I mean, I see what you're saying with that, but the men that would do this, and the men that would do that sort of thing, if they attacked another man, the man would likely fight them back. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So they're not going to get away with it as easy to be violent towards another man as they would to be violent towards women and girls. And then, obviously that it is a man problem, isn't it? It is.
Yeah,
obviously.
It really. I mean, it's not all men, but it's always a man, right?
It's always a man.
Yeah.
And so it's just, it is, in our society, there's just lack of consequences for the action. I believe it's lack. I listened to you. I sort of disagreed with your guest that you had on earlier a couple of hours ago, and she talked about misogyny in general and sort of corporate misogyny and being and I think he was having this discussion about wanting to be able to do what men do, and I was sat there thinking, so give me an example, Petrie. What can't women do that men can do?
There shouldn't be anything.
But there's not, is there?
No, there isn't.
So I believe that when you were having that discussion with her, and a lot of the Andrew Tate stuff was thrown around and stuff like that, what can't you do? There's nothing that you can't do that I can do.
No.
There's probably more the other way around, actually. There's probably more bias the other way around. So, for example, in family courts, when it comes to children,
I am with you on family courts. I think they're disgraceful. I've said that for decades. I've fought against them.
Decades, yeah. I went through that as a young kid when my mum and dad fought a custody battle, and my dad lost. Yet me and my brother wanted to go and live with my dad and various other things. So, and I've seen it. I've seen it when sort of I had a little one myself years on, and I was the one that ended up getting turfed out of the family home. And
listen, I am with you, and I mean, anybody who's been listening to me for any length of time will know that I'm completely outspoken about the family court system. I think it is completely biased and ridiculously so. But it's the same sort of bias in a way. Yeah. It's that belief that women are one thing. These courts, the family court, going, well, women are the mothers. They're the ones that care for their children, not men. So it's the same bias, if you like, because obviously that's nonsense, right? You can get a terrible mother and a good father, but the courts don't see it that way because they think women are this soft, gentle thing that should have the children, which is absolute nonsense. But it's the same prejudice.
It is the same, but this is what I'm saying, and I do. Whenever I listen to these arguments about prejudice and in general, and what women can do or what women can't do compared to men, there isn't anything really in general. Generally, okay, you might look at,
and there shouldn't be. Right.
There shouldn't be. So what I'm saying is I don't know why that's talked about in a way that it is. And I don't like the guests that you had on. I can't remember what they was.
Yeah, but still, I mean, I don't know. If she'd said it in that way, I would have fought back against that. Yeah. But she didn't. What she was talking about was that there was still misogyny in the workmean, which there is.
Yeah.
Without question, I can tell you as a woman, it still absolutely exists.
You mean in terms of jokes and the banter?
No, I don't care about jokes and banter. I'm the worst offender of all of those. Yeah. No, in terms of being thought of as less than, as not, not as good as, not as, I mean, in a lot of radio stations, they won't have two women. They won't have a woman doing a show and then a woman doing another, the next show. You won't have 6 hours of a female voice. Most of them though will have 6 hours or 9 hours of a male voice, but they still think, you can't have two women together. You can't put two female voices one show after the other. So there definitely is this.
Do they choose that? I mean,
yes, they choose that. What do you think? I mean, how many women are on this station? Compared to men.
Just pointing out the numbers doesn't necessarily mean so. For example, Julia Hartley-Brewer is fantastic. If you were on after Julia Hartley-Brewer, most of us wouldn't mind listening. We'd love.
But that's not the point. I'm not talking about you guys. I'm talking about the industry that I'm in, and if you look at other radio stations and they just don't do it, and that's why. So there is this real misogyny about. It's certainly in my industry. I see anyone I can talk about.
Is that a choice, Petrie, or is that a numbers game? Because
it's a choice. It's a choice. It's a choice.
The reason why I'll say this, so I'm a fuel tanker driver, right? And as a blue collar worker, fuel tanker driver is very good, a very well paid job. And there's no females in the company that I work for driving fuel tankers. I've seen them in the offices, but they're not choosing to go and do them jobs.
But they don't have to choose to do those jobs, and like the same way that men aren't choosing to become primary school teachers.
No, but if when we're talking about, say, for example, high salary positions or whatever, what I'm saying is the trades, for example, if we look at the trades, where people will say, okay, typically the tradesperson would get paid more than the person in the office. That's what I'm trying, more than the white collar person in the office. The women aren't going to choose and do them jobs. So they're not.
But they can, and the point is that they can if they want to. In the same way that you can choose not to be a nursery nurse worker.
Yes,
right,
exactly.
Because you don't. That doesn't suit you. But there's lots of women who do tradie jobs now, and they're blooming good at it. And we'll see more and more of that.
But that's not my point. My point is that I wouldn't want to go and be a nursery worker because, well, if I was to take that role, it would be a pay cut, right? So I've chose to do a role I can earn the most money that I can, and I've chose to do a trade that I've chosen, and them options are there, but often they're not being. Them roles aren't. It's growing. I agree. But often them roles aren't being taken up, are they? So
no, but a lot of women would also feel that they would be othered in that role. Maybe they'd be bullied in that role. It is changing, and it will change. But in the same way, like I said, people you choose what you want to do. And if there's lots of women engineers in the military, for example. But no, I get your point. Dan, thank you very much indeed. I'm just incredibly late to a break, so I've got to go. Back in a sec.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good morning. This is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you. Just before I go to Mel, I just want to read a couple of these messages here because they're really good ones. This is from Joe in Brighton, who says, unfortunately, I think the horrible uptick in misogyny is a direct result of the unfettered and easy access to graphic sexual content since the launch of the smartphone. We're witnessing in real time the generation that grew up with easy access to pornography becoming adults and expressing their warped views and beliefs. This is an emergency, and the government needs to do something very radical to combat it. I would consent to a China-style system where the internet is strictly policed and porn is absolutely outlawed, whatever age you are, because it's abhorrent and it's rotting our society from within. And that's from Joe, who's 28 years old in Brighton. Thank you, Joe. And Rachel said, I think there are so many issues. This is just a very small part, but I saw some lyrics posted on Reddit. The artists were rapping about raping women, keeping them locked up, killing them, raping their dead bodies. It was absolutely abhorrent, and young men are listening to this music. Also, absolutely, men should be feminists. I was on the Million Women Rise March, and when interviewed about the war on men, I said men should be here side by side with us. I agree. I know plenty of men who are feminists, because all feminist means is that they agree that women should be equal in the eyes of the law. That's it. Societally and legally equal. That's all we want, not more, not less. Mel in the New Forest. Good morning, Mel. How are you?
Hello, Petrie.
How are you doing? All right.
I'm not too bad, thank you, my love, considering.
Good. Considering. Why do you think there's been such a rise in violence against women and girls?
I don't think it... I agreed with what you just read out about the internet with
pornography.
With porn.
Yeah.
I think it's absolutely awful, and...
Well, there are many more strangulations of women now because of pornography.
I'm sure there are. I absolutely cannot bear it. I mean, I'm not even on the internet. I'm a technophobic. But I wanted to talk to you. You had a show a few months ago, and I didn't call in because my son was here at the time. He's not here now, and I'm calm and I'm peaceful, but I'm a victim but a survivor of physical and mental abuse by my son.
Oh, I did talk about that, yeah, about parents being victims to their children of domestic abuse.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a really interesting phone-in, actually. I'm sorry.
It was very interesting.
Has he moved out?
Yeah, he's living at his dad's now.
Good. Okay. And you're safe?
I'm safe now.
Good.
I'm on my own. I get a bit lonely at times because I've never lived on my own before. I've suffered with depression on and off for years. And he liked it when I was depressed. He doesn't like it. My son doesn't like it now. He actually said to me a few weeks ago, I preferred you when you were depressed. I said, oh, thank you.
Because you were easier to manipulate, presumably.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
So why was he violent towards you?
Well, he's got Asperger's, but I'm not putting it all down to that. He's got his father that he is now, that I left 24 years ago when my son was 4 years old. His father is a misogynist.
Right.
And...
Does he attack his father?
Sorry?
Does he attack his father?
No.
Well, then it's not the Asperger's, then, is it?
No. I don't think it is,
Definitely not. No, because otherwise, if it's something he couldn't help, then he would be doing it to his dad, which he's not, because he's a coward.
It's sad to say, he's my son, and it's a very difficult one because I love him, but I don't like him.
Yeah, I get it.
I don't like him.
I understand.
I really don't. And the reason that he's had his dad is because the last time when it was prevention better than cure, the last time he kicked off and was ranting and shouting and verbally abusing me, he was in his bedroom, I was in my bedroom, it was late at night, and I very quietly, and I was told by the police that if you dial 999 and then put 55 after it, then you don't have to, they know that the person that you're terrified of is in the house.
Yeah.
And that's what I did, and I talked very quietly, and they actually came to my house they were here within 5 minutes.
Brilliant.
And they just said to him, I told them, they went straight upstairs to talk. One went upstairs to talk to my son. One talked to me. I told him everything. I said, my son will probably lie about it. He said, oh, don't worry, we're used to that sort of thing. And they said to him, well, we can't arrest him tonight